I have a free, easy bass lesson for you today. We're going to learn all of the notes on the neck, and I think you can learn it pretty quickly because the patterns, they repeat themselves. I'm going to show you how to recognize some of the common patterns, and it's going to make learning this a lot faster. So here we go. First up, if you can learn all of the notes from here up to here, see this one with the 2 dots, that's the 12th fret. If you can learn all of this, it repeats itself. It keeps going up. And so once you get to this note, it's going to be the same as it was down here. So 0 is the same as 12, 1 is the same as 13, and so on, right? So we just cut the work in half. You can learn these, then you know this. Next, helpful pattern. I'm going to show you a shape, something you need to know. It's called an octave. It always looks like this. So you could take any note. We're going to take this one, this 3rd fret of the E string, which happens to be a G. We're going to take that note. If you go up 2 strings, so 1, 2, then you go over 2 frets, 1, 2, right? So it's a diagonal box. It's a shape that looks like this. Those 2 notes together, that's always going to be the same note. It's just the same note of octave up. So if you know this note, then you know this note. If you know this note, then you know this note, and all the way up and down the neck from any string to any string. So what that means is if you know these bottom 2 strings, like the ones that are closer to you, if you know all of the notes on the E string and all of the notes on the A string, then you can figure out very quickly all of the notes on the D string and all of the notes on the G string, right? So what we just did is we cut the work in half again. So now, if you know everything up to this 12th fret, then you know everything past it. And if you know everything on these bottom 2 strings, the 2 closer to you, you can figure out the notes on the 2 above it. I'm going to show you one more. If you know a note, let's say, for example, this one here, the 6th fret, which happens to be a B flat or an A sharp, depending on how you think of it. This one right here, this is the same as this 1st fret on the A string, right? So this relationship from here up to here is always going to be the same. So the same thing. This 7 is going to be the same as this 2. Right? So that's another pattern. If you go up a string, you can subtract 5, and that'll be the same note. So that'll help you identify things as well. So like, for example, this one here, what you can figure out, that's 7th fret of the A string, that's an E. You know that this is also an E, because you just went up 5. Or you could go down 5 on the next string up on the D. This is an E, right? So we're starting to recognize some of these patterns. So now, all you need to do is actually start memorizing some of these notes. And that's actually not that bad either, because there's only a few of them. If you know your ABCs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats itself. Okay, so if you just know the first few letters of the alphabet, you're almost all the way there, then you just need to add a couple. So it doesn't just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, there's a few extra letters in there that are halfway between letters. So you have, for example, you have E, and then you have F. Then you have F sharp or G flat before you get to G. Then you have G, and then you have G sharp or A flat before you get to A. And then you have B flat or A sharp before you get to B. Then you have C. Then you have C sharp or D flat before you get to D, and then you have E flat or D sharp before you get to E, and then it repeats itself, right? So because we went from 0 up to 12. So those are the notes are always going to be in that order. They just might begin and end at a different place on each string. So you have the string that's closest to you is your E string, this one here. So it's E, A, D, G, right? So if you know that, then you can just count up. It's always going to be in that same order. So I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen so you can see a map of the neck and you can start to recognize some of these patterns. You can start to recognize an octave. You can start to recognize up a string and over 5, right? And then you can also recognize once you get from 0 up to 12, it's going to start repeating itself. It's like reading a map, right? If you don't have any context, you don't know where you are. But if you know where something is on the map, you can probably find something else, right? So you just need to start giving yourself sort of landmarks. Like, you know these 4. You know E, A, D, and G. Then you can start to recognize some of the really common ones, like the 3rd fret of the E string is always going to be a G. And the 5th fret is going to be a D, right? This 7th fret is an E. This 7th fret on the E string is a B. You're going to start to you're just going to have to start memorizing it. Like, there's only so many tricks to learning this stuff. You're going to just have to start giving yourself some, like, it's almost like memorizing, like, okay, where you know where your house is, you know where the grocery store is. And then if we know where those two things are, we can figure out where things are in between if you're looking at a map, right? It's the same thing. And then it's just practice, practice, practice. So you're not going to get it all at once. But I will say, too, something that's important, and not every bass teacher is going to tell you to do this. I think for your flats or your sharps, you should memorize them both ways. And I'm not going to go into why it could be one or the other. That's not super important right now. But it is important that you know that it's the same thing. Those aren't two different notes. It's just two different names for the same thing. What I want you to do is start practicing. Whatever works for you, we all learn different ways, right? You don't necessarily need to write it down. You don't need to make flashcards. You can maybe just visualize it by looking at it. But start to visualize it and then starting to say it out loud. This is like super lame and boring, but like actually out loud. Maybe I'm an auditory learner. That's part of why I love music. I love listening to things. So for me to say it and to hear it, that'll help me memorize it. So I remember when I was learning too, I would count and be like, okay, 1st fret F, and say it out loud, right? And actually look at it and hear it and say it. 2nd fret of the E string, F sharp, G flat. Remember both of them, the sharp and the flat. 3rd fret of the E string is a G. 4th fret of the E string is an A flat or a G sharp. Remember, do both of them, sharps and flats. And start doing that for the whole neck. And you're going to get faster, and it's going to start to come together faster. But I will say, as a bass player, it's very important that at any moment, you could just point to any note on your neck and say, that's an F, right? You need to be super quick. That's a D. That's a D flat, C sharp. You need to be able to do it quick, because you might find yourself in a situation where you're with musicians and you're playing music together, and the guitar player is like, hey, why don't you jam with us? Hey, these are the chords. Play a C sharp. And if you can't do it quick, you freeze up, or you play a C instead of a C sharp, it's going to sound bad, right? So these things are important to learn, not just because it's like part of a music lesson, but because these are this is vocabulary. This is how to communicate with other musicians so that you can play music with other people, which is what this is all about. It's about having fun and sharing music with people that you're friends with. Good luck. You've got this. It's not that bad. It's just going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of focus, but I'm confident that you can do it. If you found this lesson helpful, I have a bunch of free lessons for bass and music stuff on my channel, and I also have a course where we go a lot deeper into how to play the electric bass. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. And I try to do these videos every week, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.